The appointments are lined up.
You waiting for somebody in there?
Got an appointment.
And it's not about what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
It's not personal. It's strictly business. It's time you and me had a private talk, Winger. Step into my office.
It's Step Into My Office with Michael Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, we'll see you now.
Now, because the Lions were our audience's top vote getter as the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC, it only made sense that Dan Campbell needed an appointment to come see you, Michael. So as he steps in, obviously this Lions team came just short of a spot in last year's Super Bowl. And now, coming into this season, true championship expectations for the first time in a long time for this franchise. What does Campbell need to do for his team to live up to that Super Bowl hype?
Don't even think about last year, Campbell. Dan, I think that's the number one thing. What gets expectations are the people from the outside the building put expectations on people inside the building. And really, the way you handled last year was magnificent. You only had one bad loss. That was to Baltimore, who romped you, and you were able to bounce back from that. You started the year off at 6-2 before your bye week. Outstanding. Lost an overtime game to Seattle, had a chance to win that, had a chance to beat Dallas late in the year. So for me, this is really all about you've got an early bye, start the season and focus strictly on the Rams because you have a tough schedule ahead of you. You play the NFC West, except for San Francisco, before your bye week. You open up with the Rams, you play the Cardinals in Arizona, and you get Seattle back in Detroit again as they did last year. So this is about starting 3-1. This is about getting off to a good start. And this is about not getting yourself over your skis because you have to climb the mountain all over again. I think all great teams start at ground zero. John Wooden used to teach his team how to put their socks on before every season, and this is when they were undefeated in basketball season. So you've got to drill home the fact that we're starting over, that the most important game of the year is the Ram game, and that nobody's going to look ahead. And as long as you don't look ahead, as long as you talk in the present tense of what's moving forward, your team will follow suit.
I know it's cliche, but what does every head coach say going into each week? Just got to go 1-0 this week. They are a 3.5-point home favorite in that Week 1 Sunday Night Football game, hosting the Rams. Total 51. Detroit, the second shortest shot to win the NFC, 12-1 to win their first Super Bowl in franchise history. Staying in the NFC, we are headed out to Philadelphia, where Jalen Hurts has stepped into the office. He cashed in with a $255 million deal last offseason after finishing second in the league in MVP voting. Took a decent step back in 2022 through a career-high 15 picks, 5 fumbles lost, more than double his turnover number from the year prior. And the Eagles, as we talked about last segment, had a lot of issues that caught up with them down the stretch, going 1-6 in a first-round loss to Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. What does Hurts need to do to play up to this deal and lead Philly back to the Super Bowl?
You got to become engaged, Jalen. I think what happened to you last year is your team, you were not connected to your team. You sat by yourself. You didn't lead with your actions. You kind of just led with your behavior, and that wasn't really going to encapsulate everybody around your team. You've really got to endear yourself to your teammates. You've got to get in that huddle. You've got to inspire people, and you've got to take the game over, and I think that's going to be the most important thing. I mean, you did not play well. The team did not play well. You got sacked too many times. People understand how to rush you now, and I think that's the most critical thing. People think your eye level's way down. People think that if they force you to scramble to your left, away from your throwing hand, the play's over and they'll win the play. And you're going to have to prove them wrong. You're no different than a basketball player who has to prove to the defender that he can shoot with his left hand, and he's being right-handed. It's going to be happening every single year, and I think ultimately that's going to be the key. You're going to have to prove that, but most importantly, you got to get your teammates back on your side. You were a little bit of aloof last year, and I think it affected the team. It affected the energy of the team, and you're going to have to show that you can throw the football effectively. Now, I know you've already come out and said this is Kellen Moore's offense, but you're involved here. You have as much responsibility towards winning as Kellen Moore does. So this isn't about passing the baton, about not assuming accountability. You've got to have accountability and responsibility.
That impact in the room with the teammates, something I think is definitely worth noting as we go into this coming season. We'll talk MVP a little bit later on in the show, but Zach Cohen in our NFL betting guide did like Hurts for MVP at 18-1 with the belief that he'll get back to that more explosive form with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator and Saquon Barkley there to hand the ball off to. How about Jordan Love, quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, entering year 2 of the Love era in Green Bay. His first year as a starter had 32 touchdowns, second most in the NFL, and helped his team overcome a 2-5 start to make the postseason. Now, last year, they certainly exceeded expectations. The forecast for Green Bay this year is to be even better despite a more challenging schedule. What are you telling Love today as he looks to make Green Bay a true contender?
Jordan, I think the most important thing is you have to build off of what you did late in the year, not what you did against the Giants where you didn't play as well. It's when after that Giant game, I know you lost to Tampa Bay, but from that point forward until the championship game, until the game against the 49ers, fourth quarter, you played exceptionally well. Your quarterback rating was well over 100 every single game. You didn't turn the ball over. You were throwing touchdown passes. You were making plays with your arm and with your feet. You were unbelievably accurate in that time. And I think, to me, that's the quarterback the Packers need this year. If you're going to be the quarterback that was against the Giants or the quarterback against the Raiders, where you're 16 for 30 and you can't complete the ball and you turn the ball over 3 times, that's it. So to me, this season isn't about where are you going. This season is about who you are. Are you the great player we saw up until the fourth quarter of the 49er game, the last half of the season, or are you going to be somewhere in between, good one week and not good the next? Consistency is really your enemy right now, and that's what you've got to come through to. And I think if you do that, your team's going to really play well. But we're not sure what we're going to get. Are we going to get the quarterback who lost to Pittsburgh, or are we going to get the one who beat Dallas in Dallas?
And I do love the way that you framed that question throughout the offseason of, is the Jordan Love that Matt LaFleur largely, it appeared like, was trying to protect him the first half of the season, is that who he is, or is it the guy the back end of the year? So hopefully we'll get that question answered. Bill Huber, by the way, is going to join us coming up in hour 2. We'll get the latest on Jordan Love's contract as well. The Lions are the favorite in the NFC North at plus 150, but Green Bay not far behind, plus 210, and the Pack 8-1 to win the NFC, 19-1 in the latest Super Bowl odds. Now, the team that they stomped in the postseason en route to that next game against San Francisco, the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy comes into the office. He's set to enter 2024 as a lame duck coach. Jerry electing not to extend him this offseason prior to the year. 3 straight 12-winning seasons under McCarthy, but just 1-3 in the postseason in that time. And as I mentioned, a disappointing postseason loss. What message does McCarthy need to hear in what is clearly a do-or-die season in Dallas?
Mike, I think what you have to do is you've got to take accountability for the loss to Green Bay, your team and you, and then you've got to bury it. You've got to move forward. But what you really have to do is learn the lesson of that game. And I think the lesson of that game was you panicked. I think once you saw that you couldn't get control and they moved the ball with such ease that you tried to get into a track meet with them. Yeah, sure. You had 510 yards in the game, but you turned it over twice. Yeah, sure, you completed 41 passes, threw 3 touchdown passes. You also threw in 2 interceptions. Yeah, sure, you ran for 123 yards. You moved the ball down the field, but you lost the game. I think, to me, that game for you is bigger than whatever the contract extension could come. It really becomes down to you have to manage games correctly, and you just can't go out and get in a track meet with people. And I think that's going to be really critical. I think that's going to protect your defense. This game taught you that no matter how good you might think your team is, you're not going to be able to play a track meet against some other teams. And the Packers beat you at your own game.
Dallas is 7-1 to win the NFC, a place they have not been since 1995, the last time that they won a Super Bowl. Super Bowl odds for the Cowboys this year sitting at 17-1. I still can't get over what you were saying to start the show about Trey Lance, Michael. I forget sometimes that he's even in the league anymore. He's just so secondary, tertiary in my brain.
You hear how Jerry talks about him. They talk at they liked him coming out in the draft. I know. Jerry said it, though. And to me, if he shows anything, I'm just telling you, if he shows anything, that's $60 million. All of a sudden, you could get it down to 20 for Trey Lance, and you're saving $40 million.
That would be just such a mind-blowing thing.
I know.
But regardless,
but it's there.
Regardless whether it's in Dallas or elsewhere, Dak is going to get paid next offseason. That is for sure. But Trey Lance, the quarterback in waiting, just is...